As Trump and Elon look to make up, are the markets getting used to the feud? The bromance is over. Why do the markets go down so much? And which ones are next to bounce back? We have Forrest joining us for Forrest Friday. We'll break down some charts. We'll get his thoughts on certain things. There's one Ripple article. Talks about RLUSD being down 57% on the demand. What does that mean for the XRP token? We'll get Forrest's take on that. Also, massive news coming out of X as they have partnered with Polymarket. Well, there's one L1/L2 that is going to benefit the most. Which one is it? And do you have any? We'll talk about that. Also, RWAs. Got to hear what the team over at Ondo's been saying with RWAs as that sector starts to heat up. Well, curious what Forrest's top 3 RWA plays are for the current landscape. We have that and another crypto company is looking to go public after what Circle just did. We have that and much, much more on today's episode of SINCITY Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to SINCITY Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency content. We take old, boring, stale information, repackage that thing up in a fun, sexy way, and here we are again. We bounced down to $100,500 and came straight back up to 104.5, 105. And so it seems that the 100K, at least for now, is going to hold. And, you know, we talked about this last week. If we hold 105 for a long period of time, or we don't go underneath 100K, it's just the prime scenario to get all-time highs, prime scenario to get to that 120. I think that with due time, if you don't go under 100K, well, at that point, bull market's back. What's up?
Bull market's back, huh?
That's right.
You know who else is back? Forrest is back for Forrest Friday. Forrest, welcome back, man.
Hey, yo, what's up? What's up?
We missed you.
Hey.
Missed you guys too.
Who do you miss more, me or Rob?
Both equally.
Sound like my daughter when I ask her, who do you love more, mommy or daddy? I like you both, Dad. Okay, lot to talk about today. Let's kick it off with, I think this is pretty massive news. I mean, we have Elon Musk and Trump on the thumbnail. We thought there was going to be a conversation. Apparently there was not. Trump said that he does not want to talk to Elon. And my whole thing was yesterday, I'm like, what does these two guys having a public feud have anything to do with crypto? And why the hell is Bitcoin and altcoins? It wasn't tanking, but it was going down fairly bigly. Hugely, bigly, you know?
Bigly, huh?
Bigly, yeah.
Bigly moved this morning, guys.
Yeah, huge.
Wow.
But coming out of the X camp, we have, as you can see here on my laptop, we're joining forces. Now, this is from the official X handle. We're joining forces with Polymarket as our official prediction market partner. Rob, this is pretty big, my friend. This is pretty big. It's essentially an integration with crypto.
Yeah, it's
by proxy.
It's interesting. Well, here's also one thing to think about is that X had implemented last year, maybe it's been 2 years now, but either way, X put in tipping. Right, you could tip in Bitcoin.
Yeah, but that was just allowing people to put their wallet address in a tab.
Yeah, and then you could tip people. You could tip your.
But there was no infrastructure directly on X.
I get that, but still, you could tip in Bitcoin, and it was a big headline. And we sat here, we were like, guys, like, what's this mean? Like, oh my God, X is you're gonna tip in Bitcoin, and people can get Bitcoin, and it didn't move anything. I'm not saying this isn't like
it wasn't
news. I'm just saying that like from a price standpoint,
it wasn't even an integration.
There's a tipping tab on X. You go to X, and
Go ahead, try it.
Sure.
You literally can't do anything. It just allows you to copy paste. Okay, click on someone's profile.
Okay.
Click on the profile, the picture.
Okay. Yeah. Profile. Yep. There we go.
Okay, go to ours. I'll show you because Robin's very special today. Can we push it over to my computer? It already is. Okay, so you go here and you click this, and that's all it has. Bitcoin address copied. Ethereum address, copy to clipboard. That's it. There is no infrastructure, nothing about crypto and Bitcoin, Ethereum. So,
Okay. So there's going to be some world shaking infrastructure on Polymarket here.
I don't know.
Integration.
It's going to be huge.
Are you sure they're not going to just add a link to Polymarket? I'm pretty sure that's all they're going to do, right?
I don't like your take, Forrest.
All I'm saying is my whole point here was just simply that the markets, the YouTube content creator circle, everybody was talking about X tipping, how bullish it was. Oh my God, Elon Musk. And then it was nothing. And Polymarket X probably going to be the same thing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Forrest, please shed some light here. My friend is a little lost. To me, this is pretty big, Forrest. What's your take on this?
I agree with Robin. I don't think this means anything for crypto.
Forrest, never mind.
How's it going to make prices go up? How does this make prices go up in crypto at all? Like Polymarket uses USDC. Like you don't even need Polygon token. Like you need like a few dollars worth of Polygon tokens if you want to use the Polymarket feature just to load up your USDC. I don't know how this makes crypto go up.
You guys are so bearish, man. You guys are so damn bearish. I'm sick and tired of it. I wish I had someone else I can call on. I wish this was a 4-person show today. Maybe that'd be more bullish.
It doesn't take much to get David excited. He'll go to this barber, which he only visits once a year, and he's just like, "Hey, this guy talked to me about crypto today. The bull market is on." And that's doesn't take much, man.
I hate it. You're the worst co-host. Forrest, we were talking about this prior to the show. You mentioned Polygon. Rob and I have been fairly bearish on Polygon. Does this do anything for Polygon for us? Maybe this doesn't do for the overall crypto markets, but seeing as Polymarket is built on Polygon, you think this has any sort of, and I'm not saying it's going to make Polygon 5x overnight, but does it bring it back from the dead? And what are your thoughts on Polygon in general? Because I don't think I've asked you that for a while.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a Polygon bull either. It might give Polygon a small boost, it just depends on how they integrate it, right? Like if they're making individual users load up Matic in their wallet to move the USDC on, or if it's just like some front end where Twitter or X takes care of that on the back end. I don't know. Like I don't know how this necessarily drives a ton of money into the Polygon token. Now USDC on Polygon, because that's what you actually bet with on Polymarket. Like it's bullish for USDC on Polygon and the TVL metrics, but I don't know if it's necessarily going to warrant longing Polygon or holding it for a long period of time. I don't know. It's not going to be bearish for Polygon. I don't think it's going to make Polygon go down, but I don't think it's just like the thing that's going to bring Polygon back from the dead.
I don't either. I'm not fairly. I actually sold my Polygon, took an L. But I made money other places, so it's going to be a good tax write-down. Tax write-off. Okay, because we were talking about Polymarket, there's a new Polymarket out. What's more likely? Will Trump apologize to Elon by Monday? 2% chance. Will Jesus Christ return in 2025? 3% chance. Are you guys taking any of these bets for us? Which one's the more positive EV here, my friend? Is it Jesus Christ or is it Trump apologizing by Monday?
There's a 0% chance Trump's apologizing. There's
Jesus, no come back.
Is there more than a 0% chance that Jesus comes back this year? That's the question. Where do we put our bets?
Sure.
He said sure.
Sure, but I don't think you'll need money.
You got Easter once a year. Well, Easter's already passed. No, never mind.
Yeah.
So
Christmas is coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Forrest,
because what are you going to do with your money if that happens?
That's true. We're not even going to be here. Forrest, I want to get your thoughts on yesterday's price action. Can you, what's your thesis on why markets, took that turn to the downside the way they did yesterday off of the news of the president and the tech guy, who also the world's most richest man, had a feud, and then everything tanked. What's your thesis on that? Or do you think there was something else underlying for us? I know there's a lot of certain metrics and stuff that you track. Was there anything else that kind of coincided with what happened yesterday, or what are your thoughts?
I think overall it just shows instability and unpredictability in the U.S. government. Just to have somebody, that was working in the U.S. government in that big of a position, or that a position that everyone was paying attention to, is Elon Musk's work in the government, and then for him to just have a big disagreement and crash out like that, I think just showed a little bit of unpredictability. It's obvious why it was bearish for Tesla, just because you don't want your CEO and founder losing his mind and calling the U.S. president a pedophile. Essentially, that's what he insinuated, saying that he's on the Epstein list.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that was the thing that really like shook the markets. Like that. That was like, there's no going back from that
Holy shit.
once you say that. And then beyond that, I think there was just some weakness in markets. I think markets overall just were could have used any excuse to dump a little bit. I mean, we just had this massive sell off due to the tariffs, and we retraced most of it on a lot of good solid assets. Like Bitcoin made an all-time high. Stocks, a lot of stocks either knocking on the door of all-time high or retracing a lot of that sellout, that tariff sell-off. So in the short term, you have a lot of markets that are a little bit overextended on the shorter term timeframes, and any excuse for a bit of a retracement, a little bit of profit taking, especially when those investors are just in general, the market's going to be a little bit more skittish after a huge sell off like we got with the tariffs. So it's no surprise that the markets retraced a bit, but pretty bullish going forward on Bitcoin and risk in general. I just think the next couple days are pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Forrest. I can see why or how it affected Tesla for obvious reasons. But the overall market, I was just like, what? Like, what? It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. You have a very unpredictable president. And I don't know, like, should people expect more of this as long as Trump's in office, which is another 3.5 years? Or do you think these will subside maybe a year in, 2 years in, kind of like they did in 2016? Maybe even sooner now, because we've already seen one full term of Trump. Maybe the markets are just forgot. Now they got to just get used to his unpredictability. Or do you think there's going to be more of these pretty volatile swings moving forward?
More of the same. Yeah, I don't think Trump's changing for anybody. I think if he at any point he could do anything, and I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. Exciting times, guys. Make sure you set your stop losses real tight. Real tight. All right, let's talk about this. MetaPlanet announces to raise $5.4 billion to buy more Bitcoin. Target is to hold over 210K Bitcoin by 2027. This is dubbed the MicroStrategy of Japan. And I was looking through my Rolodex in my head of some Japanese words, but I don't have any. Maybe next week we'll come back to Japan. I know last week was Korea. But yeah, this is, I mean, we show stuff like this pretty much every day, and we're not just going to get into the same talking points. But just know that there's people, maybe some of it's you, that are selling your Bitcoin, and then there's literally publicly traded companies that are buying those same very Bitcoin that you're selling. So think twice next time you hit that sell button. Trump says the Federal Reserve is a disaster and calls for a 100 basis point rate cut. I don't think that's a good idea. If you see a 100 basis point rate cut, I think you might see an initial surge, and then I think everything's going to dump. But I pulled up the CME for us, and my initial reaction was, holy moly, the CME flipped 99% to a cut, but it's not. It's the same, 99.9%. The Fed's not going to do anything on the 18th, which is next Wednesday. Forrest, there's a lot of analysts that are sitting there saying we're not going to get an altcoin season until the Fed starts cutting rates. I keep seeing it in our chat. And, Forrest, for some people who this might be their first cycle, I think rightfully so, are we even going to get an alt season? I think we might have touched on this last week, Forrest, but hey, we've had 7 days since the last time you were on the show. What are your thoughts on the people that are saying that there's no chance an altcoin season happens until the Fed cuts rates or we get QE or both? And then to those that say there's really not going to be an alt season, what do you say to those, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really think rates matter for which is kind of unpopular opinion maybe, but I don't think rates matter. It's just like how much are they going to print? How much are they going to debase the currency? Rates going up or down 25 basis points or even 50 basis points, I don't think is going to like, send altcoins into a crazy alt season. I mean, um, the higher rates are, the more money you're going to have, stuck in, the more attractive treasuries will be or get, which they're pretty unattractive right now, but they'll just, treasuries will suck in more money at higher rates. As opposed to risk. And then you have, a lot of money sitting in money market funds that, if we get lower rates, they could be tempted to move into riskier deployments if rates come down. But beyond that, I don't think like that's the key here. I think a lot of it's just sentiment driven, timeline driven. Like all the developments. Like what I think matters more is these companies that are just raising money to buy Bitcoin. It's just like how much Bitcoin, like what are the like the stable coin bill coming through, the big beautiful bill that's going to print and expand the deficit and debase the currency, the US dollar even further. Like all of these things I think matter a lot more than whether rates get cut 25 basis points or not. I mean, I think if you're a real estate investor, then maybe rate cuts matter a little bit more. But I would look, just towards, just crypto adoption in general as being a bigger lever for whether or not we get an alt season. I do think we will. I just don't know that we'll get it before Bitcoin's 150K plus.
Forrest, you brought up something that I've been hitting on almost every week, which is money market funds. That is how much money is sitting in MMFs right now. And the only reason they're sitting there is because people are earning 4.5 to 5.5%. So to them, it's essentially like buying a US Treasury. It's essentially like putting in a CD. It's considered very, very safe, right? Not as safe as US debt, but pretty damn close. And if they're earning a fixed 4.5 to 5.5%, or it was even as high as 6%, and the S&P average return is 7.5, 8%, hey, I'd rather stick my money in a money market fund and take a 2% haircut and know that my money is a lot safer with all the instability and volatility in the markets. To Forrest's point, once the rates come down and is now no longer 4.5 to 5.5%, it's like, hey, you can get 2.5%. Well, now that gap widens and there are more people, the money that's sitting in the money market funds is more likely to take a look at the risk on markets. And at that point, you got Bitcoin ETF in front of you. You got an Ethereum ETF in front of you. Hopefully, you'll have an XRP ETF, a SWI, HBAR, Cardano, you name it, all of them that are currently sitting on the desk of the SEC chair that they're kind of getting kicked down the road and delayed. Those deadlines are coming up soon. I believe XRPs is coming up next month for us. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But it might be perfect timing to where this money's ready to flow back into markets. And here we have now 10 ETFs with crypto versus just 2. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, people don't forget, we're in the middle of the greatest wealth transfer ever, from the baby boomers down to the next generation. And as the generations keep going, they're more apt to invest in technology, things like cryptocurrencies, altcoins, and Bitcoin. And that is happening as we speak as well. With that being said, Forrest, can I ask you, please, for a Bitcoin chart? And then when we come back, we'll take a peek at the markets and we'll get into some altcoin news.
Sure. Let me pull this up. All right. Bitcoin's pretty straightforward for me. You've seen this pattern we've talked about at length, is all this green, all these green regions that I've got highlighted. That's the first 10 days of the month. And recently, really, for the last, since the ETF came through, we've generally been putting in a bottom here. Here we had kind of 2 bottoms and one was on either side. But overall, the bottoms, followed by a lot of upside, has been covered, coming after the bottoms that we see in the green area. So we just put in one of those kind of aggressive, hopefully holds as a bottom, but it's looking good so far. Down here, right in this first 10 days of the month. So that potentially sets our monthly low, and we want to just see upside from here. This is kind of June 10th ish right here, June 9th, June 10th. I think if Bitcoin is, call it above 103 or so and flagging out on the other side of this downtrend level, then it's a long. And I think if we're still chopping downwards here on the other side of June 10th, basically next week, I think Monday is the 9th. Then you probably want to be. I mean, we've got one more level down here on 97.98. That would not be an ideal situation where we get one of these. Maybe some div there, but it's going to be really rough for alts if this happens. So yeah, I really just want to see Bitcoin start trading above 105. Either now or into the weekend and into Monday. Today's been pretty promising, retracing all of that dip. That's showing some strength out of the market for a change. Compared to what we've seen, in this sell off since the fake out above all time high. So that would be a long for me. Trading above 105 or so into next week. Otherwise, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think you could probably just buy any solid all-time high and do pretty well. Meaning, like if Bitcoin comes up and you're just still sidelined, I think if we get a solid all-time high break, the next time Bitcoin makes an all-time high, as long as it holds it for like a day or two, or even just probably 24 hours, that'll be enough to look to get long. So I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin unless we just continue this downtrend chop into next Monday, or I said this Monday, it would be 3 days, and then I'm getting pretty bearish in the short term. Not necessarily like bearish on going all the way back down to like 70, 60, 70s, 80s, but more so just in the sense like if Bitcoin's going to go here, it needs to start getting strong. And I don't want to just chop all the way down to 93, watch my altcoins get obliterated, chop back up, and then it's, August, September, November by the time Bitcoin's ready to go again. I'd rather sit this out if this is going to be the case. But the base case for me at the moment is that this does break out in the next few days, going into this, the non-green highlighted time frame, which is historically a more bullish time frame of the month. Basically, the 7th through the 21st of each month is 3 times more profitable to be long on Bitcoin than the 21st through the 7th. So that's the base case, and yeah, I think it'll be pretty straightforward come Monday morning.
Awesome. Forrest, I was scrolling through Twitter. There's this one Twitter handle that I really respect. This guy's one of the smartest people I know. And I saw some crazy they posted. And, well, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. This person was you, Forrest. That if you enjoyed XRP dominance at 4%, you're going to love it at 40%. I like the post, but I said, bro, stop. Forrest, someone in our community brought it up in the chat 2 minutes ago. You understand what this means, right? I mean, I'm sure you understand what it means. Can you explain your thesis on a 40% XRP dominance? And if that's the case, what does a Bitcoin dominance look like? What does an Ethereum dominance look like?
Sure. So I'll also pull up a chart here, and then I'll just kind of pull it up fundamentally as well, or kind of explain.
This tweet also went
rationale.
viral, by the way, for us. This has 500,000 views.
No, it doesn't. Does it really?
Yes, it does. 416,000 views.
All right. Well, so the base case with XRP is that it's been trading in, XRP dominance rather. It's been trading in this range. It's tapped this level 1% or so 3 times. And it's been traded as high as 13% 4 times. Obviously, last cycle was different, but you also had the SEC case going on last cycle, so it's no surprise that it faded that 10 to 12 13% target. In the earlier days, and not even that early, but in 2017, this thing traded at 32% dominance. A lot of people don't know that XRP traded at 32% dominance at the height of the 2017 cycle. Now, keep in mind, the 2021 cycle, XRP skipped entirely because of the SEC case. This thing's trending upwards. This thing's trending upwards, right? I think as a base case, this thing is going to 10 to 13%. That's just range highs. That's not that crazy of a prediction, even though like that would be a 3x from here for XRP. And then if you think that the overall crypto space is going to grow as well, maybe a 4 or 5x. So it's like $10 XRP. I think most people that aren't just like total XRP haters can get around, can kind of justify that, can kind of see the chart like, oh, range highs, it could do this, right? And that would be okay. And that would be the base case. Like we were buying down here, I'd be happy to take some profits up here. That would be a great trade. But then when you start, taking into account that this has gone to 32% before, it's not totally out of the question for it to eat up a lot of market share from the overall space. But the reason I think it's going to eat up market share is because I think you're going to see this this trend of people panicking out of the US dollar, people realizing that there's no stopping this debt collapse. They can keep kicking the can down the road a few years at a time. But that's the thesis behind Bitcoin, right? Is get into a store of value that is not the US dollar, where all your money is not being inflated away by like the last administration printed like 40% of the money supply like overnight. It was just absolutely ridiculous how much money they can inflate away. And just like there's a tweet that's out there. It was something along the lines of like, imagine working for like 40 years of your life to save up all your money, and then the government inflates away 20 years worth of your work in a year. It's insane. So I think there's a push towards gold as a store of value. Gold's going through the roof. It's the best asset of the best performing asset of the last couple of years. Bitcoin, well, I'd say like over the last year, Bitcoin's caught up recently, but like the gold was up 60% and it was doing extraordinarily well during all the tariff FUD. So yeah, but there's a big push towards Bitcoin, big push towards gold, silver starting to perk up. And I think the narrative is going to be like people finally starting to understand that the US dollar is going to collapse. Well, okay, you've got a global digital store of value with Bitcoin. But what do you pay with? Like where's your actual global reserve currency? What do you actually use to transact with? And people can sit and say like Bitcoin Lightning Network. I'll see it when I believe it. Like I think the Bitcoin Lightning Network just works incredibly poorly. I think you've only got you've got two options essentially to speculate on. What are the most likely what are the most likely digital assets to become the global reserve currency to be transacted and traded with? And that's Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin, but I think Bitcoin has maybe the best shot. Other than XRP, which is integrated with banks already, and has global liquidity already. Like, I just think that XRP is the next best bet, and I think it's incredibly undervalued for the idea of it being a global reserve currency. And I think at 10% dominance, all of a sudden people are going to start thinking about it differently. And I do think it can take market share from Bitcoin. I think it can take market share from everything else as well. So it's not the base case that it's going to 40%, but I think it can surprise people and go to 40%. It wouldn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin's going to go down in price. It just means that, maybe go down in dominance and XRP goes up in price more. I don't know. I think XRP is potentially the global currency. They want to do or they already do cross-border transactions and trade. So it's like, I think it makes a lot of sense for XRP to be an actual currency versus Bitcoin being a store of value. That's just my thoughts. Maybe it'll take 10 years.
Forrest, a couple things I want to know. You mentioned 30% dominance for XRP in 2017. You already know this, but the amount of tokens in 2017 versus now, drastically different, right? So I think we can say Bitcoin's dominance was 90% in 2013. But there's really nothing else, right? And so that's my one point of contention. My second point of contention is I want to ask you a question first. How much XRP does Ripple own? Like what percentage of the total
it's
supply?
got like 35% in the escrow, give or take.
And do you really think that XRP, because when I think of a global reserve currency, I think, okay, countries are going to have to hold it in their central banks, right, to use to transact. Do you really think nation states and governments are going to adopt XRP as a global reserve currency when one company, 3 guys or 4 guys or whatever, hold 35% of the supply? I don't know if that's even feasible.
Let me interject here. To sorry to cut you off, but I just got to jump in here on this. I mean, people use the dollar as the world reserve currency, and how much dollars does the
Yep.
United States hold? I mean, they're
Yeah,
comfortable. They're
and
comfortable with the
people
United States holding majority of the dollars and issue out the reserve currency. What's the difference between a nation state holding a large supply of said currency that they issue, and then you got XRP holding or Ripple holding a large percentage of?
You're talking about a government and a company.
Yeah, we're
Dude,
moving
but
away
okay,
from
people
government to private, and then on top of that, and honestly, I would like Ripple to actually hold a lot of XRP if they're going to have the world reserve currency. If they don't have their own currency, and they are supposedly, you know, and they're the ones building the framework and having, you know, putting everything together for money to move globally. If they don't have a giant pot of their own currency, it would concern me.
but but also it's like you're worried about 30, like what are you worried that they're going to do? Dump all 35% in one go, which would be stupid. They're not going to dump all 35% in one go. Okay, they do. They can only do that once. The US government can print infinite dollars. You're worried about 35% one time.
It's not
You're
about
worried
the
about
dumping.
35% inflation one time.
It's not
Okay,
about the dumping,
when we get
Forrest.
to hyperinflation, imagine 35% per year of inflation on the US dollar every single year. Like they printed 4 times, like the money supplies doubled, like 100% inflation in the last couple of years versus 35. There's a finite supply eventually, right? So it's like as long as there's a finite supply, you're looking at like, and then they've got it escrowed and they've got it coming out. Like the inflation's like nominal. It's like less than what Solana's inflation is if they just continue this escrow and like relock thing. So I don't really get the whole idea of like worrying about 35% of the supply being owned. It's like it's not a lot compared to the US dollar just getting destroyed every single year.
That's a lot. That's a lot of tokens for a company. You're trying to draw,
But
you're trying to,
who doesn't have a lot of their own tokens for large cryptos?
but they're not all
I mean,
going to.
name me one.
How
They're
many
not-
tokens does Satoshi own?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like give me one project that doesn't own a double-digit percentage of their own token.
But they're not trying to be the world reserve currency.
They're
How much
all trying to
Amazon
be the
stock
world
does Jeff
reserve
Bezos
currency. Who
own?
doesn't want to be?
They're not going to be
Ethereum?
the world reserve currency.
And maybe XRP isn't, but you're like
I don't
you're
know.
putting
I can't see
XRP on
it.
some high horse because they want to work with banks that they're not allowed to own their own token.
I did not say that.
Like how much Nvidia stock does Jensen Huang have? Like all these CEOs own like 20% of their own companies, and then they turn around and they dump it, and the stocks just continue to go up. Right? Like they've been dumping Palantir. All the executives at Palantir have been dumping tons and tons of stock, and that thing's just ripping.
I don't know. I mean, I can't see it unless like Ripple divests.
Then,
I don't
give
know.
me one per company or one crypto that doesn't own a lot of their own stuff. I'm just curious. If you think XRP
No,
is
that's
in a bad spot, then just tell me.
That's not the point. That's not the point I'm making. The
I
point
know.
is
I'm
not-
trying to understand your
The
point.
point is not that. The point is, if it's going to be a global reserve currency, okay, it's the US dollar. It's backed by the strongest military in the world's largest economy. Okay? It was backed by gold. Gold is decentralized. You can buy and hold. There's not a single person who holds gold, right?
But don't you think that crypto is backed by math and decentralization and the network and other people and nodes? Like, I mean, unless you don't believe in crypto, you're just buying it for speculative. I mean, there's a reason that I'm bullish on crypto being, I'd rather have a privatized money than a government issued money. For exactly what Forrest is saying, is that the government just keeps printing. At least with private money with finite supply, like, okay, cool. You got a lot of tokens and like Forrest mentioned, yeah, you can dump it once. Then what?
And Ripple, if Ripple holds a bunch of XRP, they want XRP's price to go up. They want adoption to go up, right? Like if they didn't hold any XRP, then they wouldn't care about what the price does and what the adoption is like. Their goal is to make XRP go up in price because then they get richer. Like I don't like it's their incentives are aligned with XRP growth and adoption and the price going up. Like I'm glad they hold some. Like I don't know. Like I
can
just don't
see-
get the whole like, you know,
Like,
you know,
I would like to
35%
know
thing.
what is the prime example if XRP isn't if their tokenomics are shit, then who is the benchmark? Like
I did not say their tokenomics are shit. I can see XRP being the number one cryptocurrency used for transactions. But when you say the world reserve currency, I think it's two different conversations. That's just what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it's just like speculation, right? Like something has to be speculate. Like, do you think like in 25 years, 50 years, we're still going to be using US dollars? I think there's like a solid 50-50 shot something else is coming in place. I think there's a real good chance that within the next 50 years, we are not using US dollars as the world reserve currency. So whether it becomes XRP or Bitcoin or something else entirely, people are going to pick up on the US dollars aren't going to last forever. This is, you know, a debt spiral, and something else is going to take its place. And then they're going to speculate on what has the best chance of that, but that being the, you know, the next thing being the world reserve currency. And right now, my stance is I think there's only two things that you can reasonably speculate on, and it's Bitcoin and XRP. I don't, maybe XRP has like a 2% chance of becoming the world reserve currency. That's still good enough to speculate on and drive a super high dominance in a frothy euphoric bull market.
Listen, Forrest, I hope you're right, man, because I got some XRP. I can't see it. I did a poll. Can you see XRP at 40%? I am shocked that 36% said yes. It's 36 yes, 63% no. As far as, I'm sorry if you already answered this question, but if XRP is at 40% dominance, where's Bitcoin?
I don't know, probably 40.
Crazy.
Probably 40, you know, and then everything else is
and that
20.
and that thesis of 40% is off the back of it becoming the world reserve currency. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Not necessarily becoming if it becomes the world reserve currency, it'd probably be like 70 or 80%.
Let's say probably
I think there's
higher.
going to be speculation that XRP is going to become the world reserve currency, and that can drive it into a euphoric bubble for like 3 weeks. Like we saw, like we hit 32% in 2017, right? Like it flipped Bitcoin temporarily, very, you know, very temporarily. I think speculation to get this thing to 40% and a blow off top is not that out of the question, especially if there's not a lot of options to speculate on.
Okay. I'm going to do another poll, and I want everyone in the chat to participate. Could XRP become the world reserve currency? I want to know what you guys think. Okay. Let's talk about this. Let's get into some altcoins. This was posted by Cryptos R Us. Solana-based DEXs have already processed over $1 trillion in trading volume for 2025. But when you take a look at the chart here, Forrest, it's been going down. It peaked in January, and Solana DEX volume has been going down. What's your thesis on Solana right now, Forrest? It was the hot meta for a while. You've hit the nail on the head for a lot of them. Solana was one of them. $12, you were on the show talking about Solana is extremely undervalued, and well, you're 3x right. And so where do you think Solana is at now? We know the kind of the end of that big run for Solana was Trump, Melania, Argentina coin, and then pumped off fund. Everything's kind of been going down. Volume's been going down. Do you see a resurgence in the Solana ecosystem anytime soon? Do you think it's still flat? Are you eyeing to get back in? Are you still holding? I know there's a ton of questions in there, but what's your thesis on Sol?
Yeah, I'm not super bullish on Solana. Like, I think it'll go up if Bitcoin goes up, like I think it's going to, but I don't think it's going to return to outperformance, mainly because how much extraction occurs on Solana. So like people go and they put their money on Solana and they gamble on meme coins. That is like the primary like function of Solana. Like that's what most users on Solana are doing. They're not necessarily participating in there's DeFi on Solana, but like most people are going there and speculating on meme coins. But the problem is Pump Fund takes out 700 million. You've got hundreds of millions extracted by these meme coin teams. The Trump coin alone probably extracted hundreds of millions from insiders just getting in early and dumping. So you have this casino where it's just like horrible odds. Like you're better off, like playing the meme coin game is worse than just walking into a casino and playing roulette. The odds are horrendous. It's like 1% of people like make over
There's
$10,000
a chart
on
for us,
pump
and you're
farm.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's pretty garbage. Go
It's
ahead. Sorry to cut you off. I'll try to find
it's
that chart.
it's horrendous. So like of every dollar that moves on to Solana, a huge portion, I don't know what percentage, but the majority of that dollar is getting extracted by meme coins, scammers, pump fund platforms, trading fees, whatever it is. And it just doesn't leave a lot left over for, Solana to benefit. The actual Sol token is just continually being extracted. And then if everybody's going on putting their money on Solana and then immediately losing it, nobody wants to put more money on Solana. So then you get lower and lower inflows. So until there's like a new speculative vehicle that Solana can dominate that just isn't as extractive as meme coins, I just don't see the future. Now, I don't necessarily like Solana is still a very, performant decentralized network that competes with Ethereum, competes with the best L1s out there. But it's hard for me to justify being super bullish on Solana with the level of extraction that's taken place and still takes place.
Forrest, take a look at this. I found it. Pump.fun this month. This is this month, not even all time. 47% of people made between $0 and $500. 48% of people lost less than $500. So what is that? 95% of people were either minus 500 or plus 500. And like 1% made between 500 and 1,000. And, when we talk about 10 to 50K, only 0.12%. So you're right, Forrest. These are worse odds than the actual casino. I think you hit it every time you hit a slot, it's like 83% chance your money goes to zero. And the other is at least you get your money back. And so, yeah, to your point, Forrest, I agree. And when you say very extractive, if you research the amount of Solana tokens Pump.fun has sold from the fees they've generated on the platform, it's astronomical. It's pretty insane. So, yeah, I mean, I still hold some Solana, Forrest. I also think, you mentioned, Forrest, the whole casino gambling meme coin meta on Solana. I think we're seeing a better version of that on virtuals right now with a lot less downside risk, a lot less risk to rug pulls and scams. Virtuals, I don't want to say it's completely figured it out, but they've done a pretty damn good job. And guess what? Even though they're bridged over to Solana now, I don't know if this is the exact number, but I would beg to say 70 to 80% of virtuals transactions are happening on Base versus Solana. And so I think that's the new gambling speculative meta where people are trying to get in. And, we've made a lot of money with that, Forrest. I know you got on virtuals. I know I heard you talking on your stream. 10 million market cap was when you and your Discord members got into virtual. So shout out to you. And if you want to get in on the Discord, Forrest, whatever money you spend to get in there, I'll tell you what, me personally, I've made that money back like 1,000-fold. And so go to 16.ai and then request access to the Discord and then jump in there. A lot of great stuff in there. I made my first 100x from your call, Forrest, on that first Trump meme coin. Remember that? I think I bought it at like 8 cents. I watched it run up to $18. I was like, holy shit. Very exhilarating. So shout out to you, my friend. All right, let's take a look at the markets here. We already went over BTC. Let's take a peek at the alts. ETH at sub 2,500, just barely though, 24.98. Take a look at the biggest gainers. Virtual is up $1.80. Those of you that pulled the trigger on some virtuals purchases at under $1.70, I think you made a good decision. Ben, Forrest, what's your, and without a chart, or if you want to do a chart, it's up to you. What's your base case and your bull case for virtuals for a peak?
I think you can get back to all-time high and maybe like go to like $8+. Maybe even higher, depending on the level of speculation that we see. Like you said, it is a much more friendly way, less extractive way to speculate on coins or AI coins and meme coins. Some meme coins launch on Virtual's protocol. And just on also just a lot less extractive of a chain. So yeah, actually think I'm fairly bullish on Ethereum right now. And with Virtual's protocol being on Ethereum and there not being, not nearly as much competition on ETH as there is on Solana, and not nearly as many things, just distracting and pulling money into other directions. I actually think Virtual's protocol can do quite well if Bitcoin leads the charge here, which I think it will. But yeah, much more. I'm much more willing to play the Virtual's protocol casino over Fun or Solana.
Amen. Amen, Forrest. And I'll tell you what, man, I made a lot of money in these Genesis launches. And our Patreon members have as well. We've hit a few 20, 25, 30Xs. We haven't hit 100X yet, but I think that's coming. So is $8 your base case or your bull case, Forrest?
I'd say it's the bull case, and that's really just because and the bull case is Bitcoin, going to like 200-300K plus relatively soon, which I know sounds crazy, but I do think it can happen if the next 2 weeks we make an all time high. But even I mean it really just depends on how well ETH does. I think a lot of ETH rotation is going to happen into the AI sector, and Virtual's protocol can do well. So, I mean, I might be underestimating the bull case for Virtual's protocol. I mean, they have a flywheel where I mean, this thing went from 10 million to 5 billion. And I'm not gonna say it was in a straight line, but I mean, it ran super hard. Um, so when a lot of people are moving their money onto that platform, virtual token is used as liquidity. So it really just depends on how much money can they suck in, which I think could be a lot. I also think they're launching on ETH, like L1 ETH as well, which I think is just going to be another really good opportunity since gas fees on ETH are cheaper than they've ever been. So yeah, I mean, $8. I don't want to say it's the base case, but if Bitcoin does well, 200K plus, then I see virtual at $8. I mean, I don't think that's unrealistic given the fact that it ripped to 5 relatively quickly.
This was, I mean, here I got the virtuals chart here, and from around $1. Oh, this only shows me from $1.40. All right, never mind. Maybe not a good example, but yeah, I mean, I agree. My super bull case for us is anywhere between $12 to $18. But that would require everything you said, plus a little more retail coming in, money printing, quantitative easing. And if Virtuals continues to really, I mean, they're like putting other teams to shame. What these guys are doing and rolling out. Um, and you've said it, and we both said it for us. This is one of the most, if not the most impressive team in all of crypto. I do want to talk about some big news coming out of Gemini as they are filing an S1 on their road to an initial public offering. Industry watchers noted the success of an IPO as big as Circle could spur others to quickly follow in the stablecoin's footsteps. Circle came in, which speaking of, let's take a peek at the Circle stock price, see where that's at. I was telling people yesterday for us, I'll be looking to, oh shit, it's up another 40% today. I think yesterday for us, it opened at $69. It's almost 2x. And when you take a look down here at its market cap value, $25.5 billion. And Chamath Palihapitiya put out a post and said, anyone willing to pay 11 to 13 billion is getting a great deal. And well, look, if you did that, you'll be sitting on a 2x right now. We're not talking $100 to $200. We're talking 9 figures and doubling that. So that's pretty huge. And so people are seeing it and like, hey, Gemini is like, look, Coinbase is public. Their stock's doing fairly well. Circle just launched. They crushed it. Gemini wants to be next. And I would expect for us a lot of other crypto native companies to do the same. Quick thoughts on this one for us before I move on.
Yeah, I mean, with the Circle IPO, I do think it'll calm down. Short term, it could run to like 180, I think, but I do think it'll eventually kind of calm down, and you'll get your deep correction. But long term, if you look at Circle, it's just like it's kind of like Visa. It's like they'll never lose money. right? You think about like how low overhead their business is compared to what their revenue model is, which is just buying short-term treasury bonds and then rolling earning, 4 or 5% or whatever on their outstanding US dollars. So there's a few risks to the business is if you see more yield move on chain and like stable coins earn yield, but it looks like legislation like the stablecoin legislation is going to keep that from happening. So they potentially have obviously there's Tether, but as far as stocks that are traded on the stock market, a monopoly on exposure to stable coins and just like very, very little risk in terms of ever like losing money. Like you have like Tesla can lose, like most companies can have like negative run rate where their revenue doesn't outweigh their costs and they're underwater for a quarter or two and then all of a sudden the stock sells off. Circle really doesn't have that. They have just like such high profit margins and such low overhead that it's a pretty attractive stock from a risk reward perspective, especially when you're looking at like the future of stablecoin growth. Gemini, I think they've got a lot of competition. I'd be a lot less bullish on Gemini.
Cool. We did have a couple of super chats I want to highlight. Mohammed, $10 said, Rob looks like a bunch of sea corals. Dave looks like an overfed beta fish. What the hell? Forrest looks like Snow White on opium. Okay. And then Poman said, why you're not listening to Forrest? He knows. I think he said that during the XRP back and forth we had. And I'm going to go ahead and close the poll we have up here. Can you see XRP being a world reserve currency? 75% of people say no. That was with 250 votes. Excuse me, 100 votes. 74% said yes. Excuse me, no. 25% said yes. Okay. And then one more thing I do want to talk about. This was pretty big news here. Apple, X, and Airbnb among growing number of big tech firms exploring crypto adoption. According to sources familiar with the matter, Apple, X, Airbnb, and Google are all holding early conversations with crypto firms about integrating stablecoins. The firms view adoption of the crypto assets as a means to lower transaction costs and optimize cross-border payments. It's a quote from Rich Widman, head of Web3 strategy at Google Cloud, who said, quote, it's pretty clear that this is probably one of the biggest upgrades to payments since the Swift network. Well, when I hear the word payments and stablecoins, I think XRP, I think Chainlink, I think XLM, I think maybe Hedera, there's a few other ones. But for me, this is big. And we say it all the time, guys, but you're in the middle of a financial revolution. And if you stick with it, you don't panic sell, and you don't do something dumb with your money, 5 years from now, you'll be looking back and saying, holy shit, thank God I was there when this was going on. Because at that point, it's just going to be mass adoption and people are going to be trying to buy your bags. And so this is pretty big news for us. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, overall, I think that the main thing that's driving this is just two things. Like just faster and cheaper infrastructure, like a faster and cheaper way to do payments on blockchain rails through stablecoins, but also that like there's just this underlying understanding, I think, among a lot of these, a lot of people in general, but also a lot of these big tech firms is that like I don't like the US dollar is we've got a debt problem. Like I keep going back to this is how much inflation the US dollar is subjected to. It's going to be tougher and tougher for the US dollar to remain dominant, especially when you have technology that can potentially replace it. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of exploration and a lot of speculation on figuring out like what is the next thing, what is going to replace the dollar, what is going to accent the dollar, how are payments going to take place in the future. I think a lot of it has to do with blockchain and stable coins, but I just wouldn't be surprised to see the dollar lose. I know this is just like a very kind of doomer take. And maybe more of a longer term view, but I'm just not convinced that the dollar is going to be around forever. And I think there's going to be a lot of speculation and people trying to find people and companies trying to find a better way to do business at cheaper margins, and yeah, ultimately that's going to lead to changes.
Awesome. So to kind of wrap up today, Forrest, well, first, I want to give a big thank you. Today's show is brought to you by Cam's Blue Wire Technology. If you run a business, you want to maximize your networking, IT, and cybersecurity. See all the crazy stuff going on with people getting breached and company. Anyways, you don't want to have that happen to your company. Visit BlueWireTech.com. Hit up Cams. We love them. They're our number one longest tenure sponsor. So shout out to them. Also, Forrest, we announced on Monday on our show our collab with Sistine, and obviously that's you, and making Sistine Trading the number one trading hub, where you can go on and find all the best traders on there. And so to continue that streak, today, myself and Alex O Crypto will be manning the stream. Come join us. If you're watching this stream right now and you just stay in it, you'll automatically be redirected to Sistine Trading channel. Once you're there, make sure you subscribe and have your notification bell on. And so we have a lot of exciting things that we're going to be doing on that channel with, of course, ourselves, Forrest, and the traders that we're going to be bringing on. Forrest, any comments on that, on the trading channel, and your thoughts and your kind of vision?
Just super excited to see it finally take off a little bit. The whole goal is to have a variety of different traders on there every single day, so you're not just getting one single person. You're going to get different opinions, and hopefully, I would hope that all the traders aren't necessarily always in agreement. I want to see different takes, just so you can find the person that fits your trading style the best. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great place for people to get a variety of different takes on the market, from really solid vetted traders that I know to be profitable.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So join us. We'll be going there in 30 minutes again. Today will be myself and Alex O. So join us, and that's all I got. With that being said, Gina, come on, dude. You gotta wait for the tornado, man. I have one thing on this show. It's a damn tornado, and I can't even get that. Jesus Christ. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
SINCITY, crypto, everybody know we here for entertainment and info, gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in, for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David, I split the game, but they gave it. Name the coin, it's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners, special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners, ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors, they gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin, and sinners gon' play to win. Screaming hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.